way.
Good morning, everybody, and good evening, everybody, and wherever you are, welcome to the Pew. So this is another great episode of this glorious experiment that we're trying to conduct in various countries in the world with our illustrious panel. And of course, we're going to be joined, hopefully, at one point also by Roseanne Barr. So it's all going well, guys. I'm just taking a few seconds so that people can tune in. And of course, this is the opening music of Nino Rota from 8½, the movie by Federico Fellini. That, of course, is about the circus of life, and so it's something that we can, of course, relate to here at the Pew. So what we're going to be opening with is very interesting, and I'm going to quickly highlight what I'm going to be discussing with you today. Of course, the main subject is communism as a virus, which is even worse than the coronavirus, because we have seen in the last few days what it means to live in a dictatorial regime under communists. People literally picked up from the streets forcefully, people sealed in their own buildings, people at times even throwing themselves for despair off the buildings. John, what's happening?
Oh, I was pointing at you.
Okay. so I am.
One of the people in the sidebar was asking me to do that.
Okay, that's fine then. So what is, of course, each one's vision of communism? We will be discussing that, but also let's go back to, unfortunately, once again, the coronavirus, which the numbers are looking more and more like that worst case scenario, which last week we discussed, and also Lowell pointed out on the research made by somebody who in reality seems to be quite accurate. And then I also pointed out with a special on this channel on this Chinese source that came up, this billionaire friend of Steve Bannon, that said that in reality the people who have been contaminated should be 1.5 million. Now, it seems that China is actually admitting now that at least 500,000 people came into contact. We are seeing more and more how this communist dictatorship is being really put to test, and Xi Jinping, their supreme leader, how he's being put to test with a virus that should have been contained very much earlier on, but it wasn't because of communism. Because you see, communism is, when you are involved in communism, there is nobody to blame. Everybody is kind of responsible, and nobody's responsible. Because that's the thing, you know. I remember once talking with an intelligence operative from Russia many years ago about the evils of communism. One thing he said, well, we tried this experiment and it didn't really work out, because when you pay the doctor as much as you pay the guy who is digging the ditch in the street, it ends up like one of the two is not going to work, or the doctor is not going to be as effective as it would be if he was in a capitalist system where he would actually get paid more. So there is now over 3,000 Chinese doctors who actually been contaminated, David. Imagine that. We should really pray for these people and pray for the people of China who are going through this test that, of course, is also putting to test the communist ideology and the way it's never really worked out, because in front of the real problems like this virus, it's obviously showing its weakness. Aside from that, there is another thing I wanted to point out. I was discussing, so apart from the communist China, who now refuses to disclose the true scale of the pathogen, and we're going to be discussing this during the show, but there is a new information that regards Italy and regards, of course, the investigation on the early stages of the Russian hoax, which were inspired by people in Italy. And now there has been a Senate request. I hope that Barr, who seems more and more like a deep state operative, is going to do something about it. But of course, we have also Durham. And they have been called to investigate on my enemies, those people in Italy who are now actually actively working against me. Imagine this, the Vatican and the Abbot of Subiaco have instigated a police investigation against my person, and they have pushed the Italian Polizia Postale, which is the same institution responsible for participating with former Prime Minister Matteo Renzi and Gentiloni in this operation together with Obama to eventually involve Trump with these emails from Hillary Clinton. So all this is the deep state, not only here in the US, but also in Italy, that is now actively working against me. I mean, they are actually going even after my friends and supporters on Facebook, it's crazy. And it's really the first time that the Vatican is showing their weakness, because if they are instigating investigations against me, I can't go back to Italy anymore at this point, ever, without a diplomatic immunity or some kind of possibility to go there without being touched, because the Vatican wants to silence me. And it's doing it in a way that is shocking people even in Italy, because this hasn't happened for many years, that a person gets not only investigated. Hello, Rosie. Good
Hi,
morning.
guys. I woke up at 7:27.
Oh, well, at least you made an effort. Within 15 minutes, you're up and running. So thank you very much for making it. And as I was saying, these people who are now, of course, Gateway Pundit has made an article, which I might show you, which also brings to light a series of documents regarding the illicit activities that these people have done behind the scene to instigate the Russian hoax. And this was done in Italy. And of course, there is the involvement of the same magistrate that initially also opened the case against me in Perugia. And as I'm showing you now, in May, we reported that rumors were swirling that the firing of top Italian spies were related to Obama and a plot to set candidate and President Trump in a scandal involving Hillary's emails. Nellie Hoare documents provided additional support that this was the case. The Senate is now asking for testimonies from deep state actors related to Italy. Now, I hope that this situation really unfolds, because this will prove the persecution also that I myself had to suffer by these people. These people are criminals. I mean, they are criminals. And so that was one other thing which I wanted to discuss. But first of all, welcome all of you. John Barnwell from Detroit, former manager of the Mayflower Bookshop and also author. Reverend David William Perry from London, who is an openly gay priest, open to a lot of forms of Christianity, more than you can count in one day. And then you have Roseanne Barr, of course, we don't need to present her. She is impresentable and presentable. That's it. And then we have Lowell, who is basically invisible. He has this morning he has painted himself with an invisible coat, and unfortunately we can't see him anymore. But welcome.
He's wearing a sweater. He had a sweater.
Well,
there he is. There he comes.
Here he is. Our one and only Lowell, our openly autistic genius. And so all of this for the pew.
Can you say openly, for me, say openly mentally ill?
Okay, openly mentally, that's fine. So which side of mental illness would you like to cover? Is it bipolar? Or how should we describe your mental illness, Roseanne?
Oh, it just is.
Okay, that's it. So, I think that at this point we have, you missed, Roseanne, the introduction, so I just have to tell you that the subject of the day, you heard it, so that's fine. So what is, first of all, let's start with John Barwell on his idea if coronavirus is more dangerous than communism that has killed 100 million people in the last 100 years.
Well, I mean, they almost go hand in hand, don't they? I mean, gee.
It seems so. It seems like they all come up out of the same kind of.
Yeah.
Well, notice they gave it a new name. Now it's COVID-19. You know, it's like.
Oh.
Yes, I think that they were very happy about having found a new name, and together with the new name went the announcement that there is a lot more cases than they ever imagined, and that of course confirms what we have been saying in the past weeks, so that there is a lot more cases.
Well, you know, but going back to the new name, I mean, with the other name, coronavirus, because corona means crown.
Yes.
And when you look at Pirbright Institute, who owns the patent on coronavirus. And they're connected.
And one thing, John, that you also talked in the past, the involvement of Bill and Melinda Gates with this institute, because now Bill Gates is admitting that if this virus reaches Africa, which has already, there's been a reported case, it will at least take out 10 million people. He actually confirmed this. Yeah.
So you see that this is like a kind of a, they look upon themselves as kind of like, you know, you have animal husbandry. Well, this is human husbandry, you know. Well, let's see, how many people can we afford to have over here? Well, let's get rid of a few, you know. We could use that land for mining. We don't need people to run the mines anymore, so let's get rid of a few. You know, I mean, it's just like.
So John, you are confirming what I kind of discussed briefly last week, which is the substitution, and also the possibility that in the end they're doing it because now there is a robotics. Maybe humans are not requested anymore in the communist hell zone of China.
Yeah, well, you know, and that's a sensitive spot for me because my family's company was a CAD/CAM company, made assembly line equipment for the auto industry, you know, Apex Special Machinery, and they were in the first wave of people. We sent my brother there to represent the company in China when Nixon first opened it.
Is Roseanne?
So you know, I'm going to do that to you.
No, I wanted to understand what Roseanne was pointing out. If it was some kind of subliminal sponsor that she was
wearing a tinfoil crown.
She has put the crown. She has put the crown. So the only crown this morning is not the coronavirus, but it's the crown of Roseanne Barr.
I hate that I can't interrupt John. But,
well,
listen, I want to jump in because I'm very much about you know, subliminal messages. Okay, crown, corona. Okay, that's cat there, right, John?
Yeah, that's you know, that's definitely you know, they're working with this subliminal thing. You know, it's that whole Tavistock Institute crowd. You know, and the Pirbright Institute is directly. Lord Pirbright was one of the members of. Through marriage of the Rothschild family. And we're getting an echo here. Yeah. And so consequently, when you trace the pedigree of this company and you follow it along, and then you look at the kind of the sister founder of Five Eyes way back in the early parts of the 20th century is the Wellcome chemical company, which morphed into GlaxoSmithKline. And but they were the ones that were the big financiers for the Second Boer War and the concentration camps that were in South Africa during the Second Boer War. So there's a long sordid history that was Wellcome that founded or funded the Imperial Press Conference back in 1909, and out of that was born the apparatus of modern intelligence: the CIA, the FBI, MI5, MI6, GCHQ. That whole nest of relationships is born out of the media, rather than that they've finally infiltrated the media. No, they basically were founded by media conglomerates back in 1909, and New York Times were represented there, the Washington Post, the Chicago Tribune.
In all this, John, what do you think is
the information is the actual currency. And so what she's saying about the crown, it falls right in with the whole way in which they carry this big albatross they want to put around everybody's neck. You know, it's a manipulation. It's straight up mind manipulation. And yes, it's a coronavirus. It's from the crown.
So this crown, no? Because I mean, we all expect this future Messiah to come with some kind of crown. Now, I was following Lowell, actually, one of his videos this week that talked about the Jewish interpretation of the Messiah, which is a much more kind of democratic, maybe open to debate. Lowell, I was quite impressed by this video by this rabbi. But at one point, I didn't really get the democratic part, because I don't think that a Messiah can be democratic. I'm sorry to say that. What's your impression, Lowell? You know which video I'm discussing?
No.
It was one of the videos that you sent to us by one of your rabbi friends, and he was pointing out on the fact that the Messiah will eventually have to be supported by the Jewish people in an almost democratic way. Roseanne, please, and unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Roseanne. Unmute.
Unmute yourself. That's a great what do you call it? Slam. When you hate somebody. Hey, unmute yourself.
Well, please unmute yourself.
Okay.
That's a moot point.
Yeah, crown is Keter. Crown is Keter. That's the Pentagon. No, the penthouse of thought. It's the highest. It's the highest realm people can go to on this planet. And some people who went there, they're not good. So I always pray for them to rejoin the human race. If you can hear my beautiful and lilting voice, I say, come back to us, help us. You have all the money and the power. All you need is a change of mind and heart, and you can walk away from darkness into light. And that's what the crown is about too. It's about, authority, the real authority on this planet. It speaks to us right through the crown of our head if we know how to listen. We don't need no government or nothing else to tell us nothing. We just need to get in touch with that, and it'll tell us everything. Over to you guys. Unmute yourselves.
I'm unmuting myself, and I want to show you a pic that I'm sure all of you will find
your mic is cracked.
Very funny. I am finding it here, and I want to project it on your global consciousness. Guys, don't get scared, though. We are ready? Here it is. So, we have Hillary, who never gives up. And now, of course, Mini Mike, who seems to want to have her as vice president. What's your opinions on Mini Mike, which is definitely somebody who doesn't make any favors to the Jewish community, even if he's obviously part of it? What's your ideas, guys? On Mini Mike.
I'm going first. He must be feeling really suicidal.
because of course once you put her as vice president, she would like to become president. So I mean, he definitely has a lot of.
Let's bet on it like the really rich people do. They bet on who dies first, you know, and they get a payoff for that. Vampire investors, vulture investors. But let's bet on how many days does he make it in office if she's vice? No, but I think she'll be like Cheney with him. You know how Cheney was the real president. She'll be the vice president, Cheney Clinton.
Well, that would be really sad for the United States and the rest of the world if this woman manages once again to come out and
her number one goal is to, you know, like Obama's role as an actor was to rob the black middle class of their money, because it's all about who's in the window to steal your money. There's no politics. Politics is just the entertainment arm of the Pentagon, which was said by my friend Frank Zappa. But you know, I forgot what I was saying to tell you.
No, well, but you said something interesting here about Frank Zappa. I'm sure that John, who is also a past producer, would like to say something.
Can you help me finish my thought, though, you guys, before you
please
move on? Help me, because I wanted to say something, and I was.
Maybe try to
there's no politics. It's only about robbing, right. And Hillary's role as an actor is to destroy women's rights. That's how you get to hold power in this country. You have to hate yourself enough to hate everyone who is just like you, and then to get elected, get hired by the producers and get a big fat contract to keep acting like little Adam Schiff, who's like, he was a failed screenwriter. I bet I fired that fucker too. But anyway, Hillary's job is to destroy the rights of women. And I just ask you to just give that a thought. Her role as actor in the Swiss pharaonic pyramid of Ponzi, pedo, phallocracy is to destroy the rights of women. But, you know, because I have a crown that receives information and then can process it and then weigh it with judgment and mercy balance, and then internalize it and eventually speak it into visibility. I'd say it is so sad to see all these women that just, give Hillary all her money. What the hell's up? It's Arab mind control. And it's like, how can women, it's what they did to me when I was working. It's the same thing. I had to withstand the most intense Hollywood mind control until I finally just fucking cracked. But I'm telling you what, I am using this opportunity, and then I'll be quiet, to introduce my hero, who is Dr. Zira from my favorite movie, Planet of the Apes. I am Dr. Zira. I'm reclaiming her from mass media assault to equate her and the ex-president of the United States, Valerie Jarrett. I am Dr. Zira, not Valerie Jarrett media. Please. Okay.
Godfather Leo, I'm ready to answer your question now.
Yes, I'm just unmuting myself, and I wanted to actually, first of all, compliment Rosie for what she just delivered, and then discuss the closing of Harvey Weinstein's case, a very good friend of Hillary Clinton, and everybody in Hollywood knew about Harvey Weinstein, the #1 predator. Please, Rosie.
I heard he's already been sentenced, and he's sentenced to a $100 million deal with Netflix.
Rosie, I will be a little bit careful about saying things like this because people might actually get inspired by your thoughts. And I mean, Netflix being the flagship of the devil. So, Lowell, what do you think of Harvey Weinstein and the closing of this case? Because during the last parts of the case, we discovered that Harvey Weinstein has no balls and no sexuality. Yes, I mean, he basically is a transsex. He has both sexualities, Lowell. Yeah. You didn't hear about that, Rosie? Yeah, they showed actually his winky in the court, but it wasn't really a winky, and it was he's a transsex. So I really don't know how he raped all these women. I know, and it's also, this goes along with the Me Too movement. I mean, there is no Me Too because now the guy is not a guy anymore; he's a transsex. Lowell, what do you think of transsex? It's kind of interesting, eh?
Well, let's go back a few steps to the original question you asked me, and I usually like to have as my opening remark greetings to Godfather Leo of the Zagami PEW family that we are privileged to be members of, and Our Lady Roseanne, the Biblical Boudica, Hannah, Deborah, Esther, Huldah, and High Priestess of Heaven, and also to my fellow knights of Lady Roseanne's table, Sir John, Sir David, Sir Lowell, and of course, Sir Leo. Now, in terms of coming into this time-space continuum, I want to wish all of our viewers and listeners, let's say Sunday, Shavua Tov from the land of Israel, city of God, Jerusalem, Hill of the Priests, Abu Tor Givat Hanania, overlooking the Temple Mount. And if you look in the background, it's not the usual background, which is a little studio office in our home. We're having repairs done in the bathroom. What you'll see is there, that way. Shelves filled with Torah books. I'm in a synagogue, Beit Knesset Shalom V'Ru'ut. And actually, let me get it. This synagogue is in a compound owned by the Greek Orthodox Church, which owns half of Jerusalem. They bought it, you know, like the Peter Stuyvesant, when they came to Manhattan Island, they bought it for $26 worth of costume jewelry or something. So they own this hilltop, and they're very nice. When the Jewish refugees came in the 1950s, 1 million from Arab and Muslim countries. Did you hear that, guys? They're not Khazars. 1 million from Arab and Muslim countries. There may be some Khazars here, but they didn't come from Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, and Central Asia maybe. Okay, and that doesn't include the million.
Yemen.
What?
Yemen.
Right, and the million who came in the 1990s from the former Soviet Union, Jewish, half Jewish, quarter Jewish. That discussed all that in the Nuremberg laws. In Israel, we arrived in 1992 as 1 million immigrants came in from the former Soviet Union. Israel started to get more fair-skinned, blonde, and blue and gray-eyed. And then they intermarried with everybody else, which is very good because all you little Nazis out there, if you want to produce a master race, you don't dumb yourself down by inbreeding, jackasses. You have hybrid vigor. You have hybrid vigor. And that's why Germany from 1870 till 1930 was winning more prizes in Nobel Prizes in science than America, France, and England combined because they let the Jews in, and the Jews interacted with the Germans.
And also
What?
they allowed, and also those universities, before they went Arab Rav like the United States universities are now, they taught real science, actual science that includes a control group, for fuck's sake.
Amen. So, and then to put it in time, today is the 16th of February, 2020. Because we're in the evening, it is now the 22nd day of Shvat 5780. Put us on a prophetic timeline. In a few weeks, we have Purim coming up. About 2 months Passover coming up in 3 months, Shavuot coming up, and that is absolutely related to the end time plagues occurring right now. And for you Christians out there, look at the book of Revelation, chapter 6. Read your own scriptures. You talk about them and ours, but you usually don't read them, or you read them selectively as your handlers want you to see what they want you to see. So don't start with me with scriptures.
Noel.
What?
Noel.
Oh, yeah, the original question. Yeah, the question about the Messiah. All right, here's the answer. First of all, the Messiah, I got this from a guy today. One thing I agreed with people writing me privately is, you writing me privately, I will not reveal your names or what you said in particular, but I will respond in general. So one person wrote me talk about the Moshiach. I said, first of all, that's how Chabad spells it, Mashiach with an A. Thank you. No disrespect to Chabad, but that ain't me, babe, that you're looking for. Okay, the Mashiach, what does that mean? The Kohen HaMelech HaMashiach, HaKohen HaMashiach, it means the anointed high priest and the anointed king. Mashiach is from a word to put olive oil on someone's head. That's the whole deal. That's what it means. That's how the king was brought in. Olive oil was poured on his head. And Leo, I'm hearing an echo of what I'm saying. Okay, now the king is chosen. The king is chosen by God, but must be approved by the people. The people have to approve the choice of God. And the biblical model for messianic government is small farms, small businesses, and small government. And that's our model for the whole world. And I don't know. Right. Okay. I like Pastor Paul. Pastor Paul starts his program saying, calm down, get me a cup of coffee. I think he's terrific. I wrote him, I'm probably your favorite. Give him hell, Pastor Paul. I'm your favorite Pharisee in Jerusalem. I always like his broadcasts. Calm down. Get me a cup of coffee. I think he's terrific.
But the problem, is that it creates some kind of friction here between the Christians and the Jews, as this is a panel constituted by both Christians and Jews. I would like to ask you, what do you think of this Fair Temple reconstruction? Because the Christians think that it will bring in, usher in some kind of Antichrist. There is some kind of conflict with what you said also last week.
Usher in an Antichrist? Okay, I have a question to 1.2 billion Christians out there, Roman Catholic, State Protestant, Eastern Orthodox, and thousands of Anabaptist and other Protestant sects since the Protestant Reformation. You don't see your Antichrist already? How many of your bishops, pastors, preachers are involved in stooping and stealing money, stealing property? God save us from these raving priests who steal our bread and kill our beasts. That's a poem from Ireland. I didn't make that up. That's just how it starts. Now you look back at your churches and the scribes, Pharisees, and hypocrites who run them today, and we'll start off easy just with stealing. What?
Yeah. Of course, after you, now we will have to pass the word to our one and only priest, which is Reverend David on top of you. So once you finish, I will pass on the word to him.
Oh, well, I'm never finished, so let me finish. I'll stop this monologue right now, which is that Christianity had a theological doomsday device built into it from the beginning. Jesus died. He didn't complete his mission. So the world wasn't redeemed unless you want to go into a kind of theological, psychological schizophrenia where I don't care what it looks like, I'm redeemed inside. I have no objection to emunah, good states of mind, but out there, it's very simple. 500 million people in India take a crap under a tree. Don't tell them their world is redeemed. Ain Kemach, Ain Torah. Hopefully within 3 years with the Messianic Israelite Yovel Jubilee year, everyone will have food, clothes, water, a little house, and we won't have fiat currencies, and we won't have debt, and we won't have interest, and we won't have the central bank, and we won't have the killer bank of banks, the Bank for International Settlement, now called the World Bank. These are criminal enterprises. They should be shut down today, and everyone who works for them arrested, put in jail, and put on trial. For what? Money laundering, everything you can possibly think of. They sell bodies, body parts, gold from teeth from people murdered in the death camps. All right. So this talk about the Antichrist, what the church fathers did when it didn't start out that way. Christianity was a Jewish movement with Gentile members that within a century became a Gentile movement with Jewish members, and then the Jewish members got jettisoned. Then the set in concrete, the theology of the, till today, of the mainline normative Christianity of the three branches comes from the church fathers from the first 4 centuries. So they saw the Jews are still here, the world's not redeemed. Aha, they're waiting for an Antichrist. You don't see Antichrist around you right now? You don't see that? You don't see what's going on around you, and you're waiting for an Antichrist? Look right in front of your faces. And the servant.
I agree, Lowell. Sorry to cut you short, but we want to also give the possibility to Reverend David William Perry to give his Christian perspective on this controversial matter. Of course, here we are open to various views, and we always agree to disagree. So welcome, Reverend David Perry.
Well, welcome and love to you all, my Pew family. I love that crown so much. I love Roseanne's crown so much. I mean, I don't know where to start. You know, is my epitaph going to be the openly gay priest? I mean, what a depressing thought. Here lies David Perry, the openly gay priest. I hate.
Well, I think that is very courageous of you, David. So, I mean, that's why we promote you.
Well, no, this show is configuring my future, which is worrying me a little. I absolutely hate discussions on Christology. I absolutely hate comparative theology. I absolutely hate what Jews think against Christians, what Christians think against Muslims. I absolutely hate it. Obviously, there is a difference in the view of Messiah between Jews and Christians, which is not simply a question of historicity. It is also a question of personal devotion, prayer, meditation. And if I think of I'm always at loggerheads with the entire church. I'm convinced the entire Bible Belt hates me individually. So I'm probably not the best person to answer. And also my career has been destroyed time and time again by people that didn't like my search and my searchings. I don't find it productive, and I certainly don't find it Christian to dwell upon the differences. From my perspective, we're looking at the area of mystery. By definition, mystery isn't simply human. I was speaking recently with some Ahmadiyya friends of mine at their great mosque in Morden, which is a couple of tube stops, metro stops from me. And of course, the crucifixion actually didn't take place. There was the prophet, because a prophet of Islam would never be treated that way. So there was a substitution between Jesus Christ and someone who took his place to be humiliated. I'm paraphrasing massively, humiliated. And therefore, there's no crucifixion. I don't know what to say to all of this. Why is Christianity so wonderful? Bless those who curse you, love those who hate you. That's why it's wonderful. I can think of armies of very busy priests, pastors, and nuns that have nothing to do with paedophilia, that sacrifice their lives to just try and make the world a better place, that never raise an issue, that never raise a problem, that just get on with their lives and their vocations and try and keep the community together under the most terrible circumstances. I'll just finish one point, Roseanne, I promise. And, the vast majority are not paedophiles. The vast majority are not crooks. The vast majority have chosen one of the most difficult professions in the world, where there's no thanks, there's no joy, there's no remuneration, and basically you're lucky to be able to pay for your own funeral. And I
Well,
think
Reverend David, sorry, because you haven't joined the gay lobby inside the Vatican. They control the Vatican Bank and billions of dollars. I mean, they look after their own. Very much.
Dear Vatican gay mafia, I am here. My number is available. If you want to buy me, this is a good time. I am poverty stricken. I'm there with you, brothers. No, I mean, look.
I want to join the Jews that control the fucking media.
I used to work. Look. I'm overawed by you, Roseanne. You know I am. I can barely talk to you. You're too perfect. You're too wonderful. And you've got a crown. I can barely talk to you. You're just, and you've got a crown and you're holding Corona. I mean, what else can I do? I chose to lead an authentic life as far as I could. I chose to try and be honest before those mighty, holy powers that rule the world, no matter what name you wish to give them. And you live your life as you configure it. I find it totally unproductive, whether the Messiah is some sort of political savior that will restore the state of Israel, and we'll all deal with that, or whether is it some simpering Greek that floats down from the clouds, and then we're all on our knees forever. To a certain extent, with due respect to Lowell, these are children's stories. Is love in our hearts, is wisdom. That's Christianity, that's Judaism, and that's Islam. And if we're busy throwing metaphor, I can't. For me, that's not really getting anywhere. And let me just finish the Amadeus story. So, of course, in terms of, and they're ungrateful buggers. If they were in Pakistan, they'd be arrested and put into jail. So all they come is move to Britain and moan about the British. You've got this gigantic mosque at the end of the road, According to the other Muslims I know, the Ahmadiyas are stooges of the British, and they're heretics because they think the Messiah has come. So what am I meant to do when I'm a guest at their wonderful peace celebrations, or a guest where they're getting clergy together from different denominations to say let's try and do something. So I don't want to focus on the differences, and for me that's the only Christian stance I can support wholeheartedly. Let's remember what joins us, not what separates us. That's the past. That must go. It strikes me, and I'm not getting partisan. Hillary Clinton, who of course to me is a foreign politician, spends her life building division, misunderstanding, and you are not us. So I just refuse to go along those lines. What is the Messiah? Love. What is the new kingdom? Truth and beauty. And anyone that agrees with that, then they're a brother and sister of mine. That's all I can say.
Thank you, David. That was, of course, another excellent contribution. Please, Roseanne, what are you showing us?
Yeah.
What's that? Looks like a good save, but what do you have inside there? Because it's pretty early in the morning.
There's nothing, but I wish there was some brandy in there. Thank you so much. David beautifully said, Torianically correct. I love you, brother.
Oh, mutual, but you know that mutual.
So the topic of today, and John, of course, wants to say something. Please, John.
Yeah, in the Gospel of John, the word love is mentioned 17 times. And in the Gospel of John, it says God is love. Now, in reference to, how shall they know the Christians, Jesus Christ has said, ye shall know them by their deeds.
That's right.
And so it's not all, are you a Trinitarian or a Unitarian or, what school of thought do you adhere to in your relationship to Christianity, you kind of have to throw that out the window as far as being able to really line up with the impulse, because it's an action in the world. Jesus said, "Whenever two or more are gathered in my name, I am in the midst of them." So it's a proactive stance. It has to do with life affirming. It has to do with, well, you can look at it in the Kabbalah, you say, redeeming the sparks of light by confronting the darkness and shedding light. You become a transformative force in the world. And if anybody doesn't want to try to join me in that initiative, that's their right of prerogative, but it all centers on balance. So you have to be able to have, like Lucifer says, the world is an illusion, and Satan, or Ahriman, he says, oh, all that spiritual stuff is nonsense. It's just the material world, and thoughts are chemical reactions in the brain or whatever. So you have these two extremes. And then in the middle, where you find the point of balance between the immateriality and the straight up materialism, which is like communism, for example, then you'll find the Christ in the middle, trying to mediate and build bridges. And that's why the church kind of, they captured that word, because pontifex means bridge, and the Pope is meant to be a bridge. And but he's become a barrier in the realm of ideas, and the division of the church, what the shenanigans with Pope Benedict and all of that, and the Jesuit takeover, it just doesn't look good. It's becoming the political wing of the, whatever you want to call it, the plenary oligarchy. Who represents the money? They want to be the ideological basis of representing the money. In order to do that, they have to join hands with and create, like Leo calls it, Chrislam. Then if they can pull that one off, then they got the largest congregation in the world, and it all goes down to central control, and it's just a nightmare, because there's never been a central control government that's worked. I mean, I challenge people when they bring up all this nonsense. So it's just like when they interviewed Bernie on TV the other day, and I think it was NBC, and she says, well, the calculations are it's going to cost $16 trillion over 10 years to pay for this program that you're suggesting, and you see Bernie's head explode, because, and then she'd say, what? You mean you don't even know how much this is going to cost? It's just unrealistic what they're trying to do.
Debbie knows very well that his participation to this circus is a temporary one, and that probably in the end he's not going to be part of any White House. I mean,
the microphone is crackling.
My mic is cracking?
Yeah, really bad. It's hard to hear your voice.
Oh, okay. Then I will try to get back in a few seconds after fixing this problem.
Okay. Okay. Who wants to talk? Come on, Lowell. Oh, Reverend David.
But let me just say something, which is sort of off topic but on topic. I mean, I used to hang out with lots of Euro communists. That's a long story in itself. At the Fabian Society, which is so posh it's untrue. And none of them have ever done a sort of working man or woman's day's work in their life, and they all know the best dry sherries, and it all ends with this sort of immensely civilized handshake at the end. When I use the word socialist, it tends to be from a very Brit perspective. So what am I thinking of? What is the background? I'm thinking of the diggers, I'm thinking of the levelers, and I'm thinking of people, what was it, when Adam delved and Eve span, who was then the gentleman? I'm thinking of people that were trying to open society up to greater opportunities. I agree with Leo. I mean, and don't forget the libertarian part of me. I'm always deeply suspicious of big society, big institutions, big anything when it comes to that type, that side of life. What are they up to and what do they want? So I'm deeply suspicious of that. But I think Leo's correct, particularly in that recent book of his. There's something almost demonic in what the word communism has come to mean. You know, I mean, I was toying with the idea of a title for an essay or a booklet a year or so ago called Catholic Communism. And Leo was saying, well, I need to read that. I need to see that. And it was actually one of my Jesuit friends that said to me, are you sure you want to use the word communism? Don't you mean communitarian? Because I was thinking of the New Testament where, of course, Ananias and Sapphira run afoul of the holy community. Our Lord is gone and the holy community. The Holy Spirit returns in the form of a community seeking justice. And one of them is struck down for holding back private property. I mean, it's clearly a symbolic story. I mean, it's not meant to be taken literally, I don't think. You know, so when, as I was saying, Leo, you know, for me, when words like socialism come up, I'm always caught on the sort of British historical imperative of basically a seeking to balance within our society. But that is not what modern communism is trying to do. And that's, you know, this overarching monstrous machine that rules everything. I've never thought of anything so terrifying in my life. You know, and what's it trying to do apart from perpetuate itself? You know, what was that book, John? Schumacher, Small is Beautiful.
Yeah.
Small is Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, surely that's the way forward, where we all take responsibility for ourselves and our communities, and we try and seek the best for each other. Why do we need these monstrous mechanisms fueled by deeply suspicious
I think,
ideas?
David, sorry to interrupt you, that communism is a nice idea in the sense theoretically, but in practice, it doesn't work. And Roseanne, please unmute yourself.
The good face of communism, which of course can never work because it is commandeered by apes with car keys. It can never work. But in our indigenous society, which was really incredible, and it was very much based on Egyptian law, but I want to stay focused. We had in our temple, because we started talking about the rebuilding of the temple. I want to get back to that, but we would bring the Feast of the First Fruits, the best of our harvest, we would bring to our temple, and that was for the widows and orphans and the sick and needy. So, and from there we took no cut off of that. We only took a cut in the middle. So these are like kind of pillars that are missing from communism and why it can't work. However, true communitalization, or whatever you called it, communitarianism, could be practiced with when the temple comes back and we return to our indigenous biblical structures and government. And so I don't say it's not possible. I believe it is possible in the age of the Messiah, but it's not possible in the recent past and all the way through, because they were missing a focal point, which is the temple itself and its structures.
At this point, Lowell wants to say something, and then we're going to go to John Barnwell.
May I defer to John? I want to hear what he says first. If it's
Okay, John, please.
Yeah, well, given what I just said previously about whenever two or more are gathered, I am in the midst of them. That's the communitarian impulse, but it's a human impulse. It's not some kind of overarching political system. And see, people that are looking for political solutions to interhuman problems, it's just the wrong way to look at it. It has to do with people looking for, it's become typified as the nanny state. It's like, oh, I'll just hand it off to dad and let dad fix it. It's like it's a failure to take responsibility. And as far as what David was saying about the Fabian socialists, well, they started the London School of Economics, of which George Soros, that's his alma mater. Oh, but Mick Jagger went to that school too, by the way. But he likes our doctors better in the U.S. than the social system doctors in England. But nonetheless, surgery basically became its most highly developed disciplines in England, though, isn't it? So that's kind of a conundrum right there. So these things are not, it's a masquerade. And when you get into these words like communism, socialism, you always have to look back and say, who is the person behind this particular version of whatever this is? So it's really not communism, it's Stalinism or Maoism, or it's really not fascism, it's Hitlerism. So you have to see who the actual individual is, because who is their overlighting or over darkening spirit? Who is the being that's working behind a Hillary Clinton?
For example, John, sorry to interrupt you, but Bernie Sanders has openly preached in favor of Fidel Castro. How do you define Fidel Castro?
Yeah, that's a great example. It's like when I see these black guys with Che Guevara shirts on. Che Guevara hated black people. I mean, it just shows how misinformed people are. And their unwillingness, again, to take responsibility for being an agent of goodness in the world, which is really what we're talking about. All this other stuff it's a bunch of word salad. To a certain point, you can talk to your blue in the face, but what have you done? It was like what I said the other day about I planted 12,000 loblolly pine trees in Maryland. That was with Steve Farmer, who wrote Journey to the Center of the Mining. He's in band with Ted Nugent. My old business partner, Bobby Hankins, was the manager of the band. And, we went out to Maryland and I planted 12,000 trees, and now they're 90 feet tall. It has to do with love in action. Love is a verb.
Ladies and gentlemen,
this is the word God a verb. You know what? I love what you just said, and I had a great idea, but when I went to unmute myself, I forgot it.
Well, maybe you muted your thought.
Well, Roseanne, maybe you can think about it, and when you are ready for this idea, you can just, and we will immediately give you the voice.
I thank you for that.
So what I wanted to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, who are here in the pew, this excellent panel of intellectuals, is really this coronavirus. Where is it going? Because, I mean, we are in front of almost a pandemic.
Okay, I remember. The thing I like best of the New Testament, which I'd really like to get into a discussion of that so people could hear the Jewish perspective, which is banned from the earth. But I'd really like to share that. But my favorite passage in the New Testament is, I think Jesus may have said it himself, but I may be wrong. But anyway, the phrase is, faith without works is dead.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So we finally got to what Roseanne wanted to say, but let's go back to what I wanted to discuss now, which is the coronavirus. The coronavirus has been seen by a Jewish rabbi as a way to prepare the world for the coming of the Messiah. Now, even in Christian circles, they are relating the coronavirus, COVID-19, as is known now, to the end times. So I wanted to have from each one of you your opinion about this very sensitive matter, which is of course on every news, but is also something we need to discuss because we need to prepare for what people are saying might really decimate 3/4 of mankind. So first of all, let's start with Roseanne Barr and her idea of what's going on with the coronavirus, COVID-19. And one more thing, Roseanne, I actually broke a news a few days ago about a book written by Dan Kohns in 1981, which had already a virus originally called Gorky 400 because it was based in the Soviet Union. And then in the edition from 1996, it's being called Wuhan 400, coming out of a lab as a biological weapon out of Wuhan. So Dan Kohns, how could this guy know all this? What's your idea, Roseanne? I think that you need to unmute yourself, Roseanne.
We're under assault. The whole family of man and woman, we're under assault. And they take bets on say, oh, they're inflicting some kind of a event of mass suffering on the populace. And they take bets on who's going to do, how many people are going to do what. They study it. They study our reactions. That's what the Nazis really did. They set that not in motion, because it was put in motion in the Inquisition, where, mind control was backed up by torture. And so then the Nazis studied how people, I guess we would just call ourselves the rats. That's why I love that book, Mouse. But the rats, the lab rats that those people who control everything, the club none of us is in, they take bets on data. They practice a black science. Everybody always says black magic, but it's actually black science. And, it's a field of mind control through torture. And they've inflicted that on the populace everywhere. And they do it to people who can't fight back the easiest, which is, young people. But, they seek to control us with social experiments and human experiments and all these other things. So it's just par for the course. But how are we going to get out of that? We have to start talking about recognizing that it is, a mass extinction event, and it's plagues. It's like in the Bible, the plagues are here, and they do signal the end, I think. The end of slavery in Egypt, Lowell, because everybody always says, oh, these are the end times. Well, I agree with that, but the end of what? And to me, it's the end of the old pyramid system.
Right.
And another sign for that, Roseanne, might be also the locust in Africa. I mean, it's like really the plagues that are afflicting after Moses started this conflict with the Pharaoh. Please, Lowell, continue.
Right. Okay. First of all, when I say like to base my comments on scripture, this is, hello everybody, the old King James version of the Bible. Why? Because it's the best English. Think Yiddish, dress British. Is it a perfect translation? No translation's a good translation. So let's leave all that out. Good, bad. A translation's a translation. This is really good English. All right. So relating to what's going on in China now, the answer is, one of the answers is in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 16, verses 14 and 15. It says, therefore, behold, the days come, says the Lord, that it shall no more be said, the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, and from all the lands whither he had driven them, and I will bring them again into their land that I gave unto their fathers. What do the traditional rabbinic commentators say? And a footnote there. Unlike the ignoramuses of the Christian world today, in past centuries, there were great Christian scholars who knew far more about the Talmud than I do. When they graduated from Harvard and Yale 200 years ago, unlike me, you had to be able to give a talk in Hebrew and write it, and Greek and Latin. I would not even get in. So You had people, scholars like John Selden in England, the great jurist in the 1500s, 1600s, Hugo Grotius in Holland, the father of international law, William Penn, the founder of Pennsylvania, the Quaker, who were far more familiar with rabbinic writings than someone like me who doesn't know Kabbalah, doesn't know Zohar, and really doesn't know Talmud. I came the other way. I just started reading the Tanakh with the commentaries. These guys really knew it, and they had great respect for it, right? So what do those commentaries say now that I've started to learn them a little bit? The plagues of the end, new beginning of days will dwarf those of Egypt and will extend to the entire world. And it is not just the liberation and restoration of an Israelite kingdom with the lost 10 tribes. It's the liberation of all the tribes, clans, and families of fallen man from all the Egypts, all the pharaohs, and all the Nimrods. What's going on in China, and it doesn't matter whether the diseases were released by Satan scientists in, well, that English, the one with the house of Saxe-Coburg Gotha, which in my opinion no longer exists. You had your 100 years from July 1917 to 2017. It's finished. Now there'll be a real British house. There'll be a real Irish house, a real Welsh house, a real Scottish house. Not you. You can go back to Dracula's castle, Charles. You're not a prince. You're not a prince. No disrespect to your mom. She's okay. That was it. All right. So what's going on in communist China is, I would call it, I made this one up myself, the Amalekite Andromeda strain. And the second one, the communist Chinese Chernobyl, I did not make up. And it doesn't matter whether it's released by Satan scientists. No matter what anyone does, any created being, heavenly or earthly, the creator, God, will direct it all to the fulfillment of his purposes. And either way you go up the mountain, this way or that way. Of course, it'd be nice to do it the easy way. It may not be the easy way. We're in the middle of that right now. Now we come to another point, which is Daniel's vision of the hand. Everybody knows the palm, the finger. It's the fingers on the wall. Belshazzar having his feast, and he's frightened and calls Daniel and says, what does it mean? The kingdom has been taken from you. So the kingdom has been taken from who? Let's go over the list. Soviet Union, 1921 to 1991. You had your 70 years. It was over. Whatever neat so sparks of life within it was out. And about who founded communism? Karl Marx, grandson of 2 rabbis. Not a credit to the children of Israel, who took the social and ethical mitzvot of the Torah, mitzvot ben adam v'chavero, and some of the messianic vision, and left out one key element, God. And another Jew who I do like, Nostradamus, also the grandson of 2 rabbis, Kabbalistic rabbis. He was from the expulsion from Spain and Portugal. The Jews who stayed Jewish called the Marranos, which is a medieval Spanish word for pig. If you want to be more polite, call them conversos or bnei anosim. I prefer to be more polite. I like Nostradamus. He's okay. But Karl Marx was not. And as Lord William Rees-Mogg, the father of Jacob Mogg in the British Parliament, I met him in 1992. Lord William Rees-Mogg was a great admirer of rabbinic teachings. He called the Marxist scriptures the Talmud of the devil, as opposed to the real Talmud, for which he had great respect, as did John Selden and William Penn and Hugo Grotius, all of whom respected the Noahide covenant and laws, and never in any way interpret the clause against idolatry to mean, as I hear today, we're going to kill all the Christians and the Buddhists. That's a big bucket of BS, because what you're projecting on us is your own doctrines and theology, which is purely based on concepts. If you don't accept that Jesus died for your sins, you're going to hell. And furthermore, in that hell, you don't just die in 5 minutes in an oven or a gas chamber. You will burn forever and choke forever.
Roseanne wanted to say something. Roseanne, please intervene. Unmute yourself. Roseanne?
One of my favorite Jewish people is named Pinchas, and this is Pinchas water. I just want to say, everything we're talking about. Oh boy, I don't know how to put this nicely. Let's go. Let's step off, and let's talk about Pinchas for a minute. And Pinchas.
How much money is Pinchas giving us, Roseanne?
100% of the proceeds go to charity.
Oh, well, okay, that's great. That's great.
It is great, and I'll tell you about how we took this water, and I was involved in meditation over this water, and we took thousands of liters of it to Chernobyl and poured it everywhere. And
actually, Roseanne, it might have worked because
life returned to Chernobyl.
And now there is a fungi that is growing on Chernobyl, absorbing radiation. Maybe
that's right. That's right. And I was involved in that. But I just want to say this about Pinchas. He was a venerated priest, and he was a healer. He was so admired that there's a portion of the Torah named for him. It said that he was personally responsible for ending a plague that claimed 24,000 lives. He tapped directly into the universe's healing energy and created a channel for us to do it ourselves. And so it is done. We took this to Chernobyl and life returned. I just want everyone to know that above the fray, there's actually solutions, and they do come through the crown of our being. They are holy thoughts, and this is what's coming. This kind of consciousness, and what's leaving is, the pharaonic pyramid, Ponzi pyramid of feudalism. So I want everybody to just take that in and think about it for a second. But anyway, yeah, this water is fantastic. I had disease myself, and the water was created with and for me by my teacher. And the disease I carried left me. So it is mind over matter, and that's what the 2020 decade is about. Spiritual yearning and connection to healing and love. And long may it wave.
And of course, we have holy water also in Lourdes, no, Father David? And at the same time, we have the most amazing water also in Mecca. For those who have had the possibility to taste this water, I must say it's pretty incredible.
Did you guys know that all springs in the world are connected?
So there is like a mutual spring of all springs.
Every spring on Earth is connected underground. So that's why we discuss source, because source is water. And that's a very high spiritual plane. That's up there in the penthouse of thought. But
we also know, Roseanne, that water can be influenced by an external electromagnetic idea. So
right.
It's the
most malleable of everything.
Yes, so it absorbs your energies. So water that, of course, is put in front of a black metal band playing absorbs those energies and becomes water that is not good, while instead water that is being brought up with prayers, and of course cherished with positive thoughts is a completely different thing. Definitely water can be of great power.
That's one way that communism or communalism could work, and does work, in fact, is by connecting the thoughts, souls, minds, and prayers of all of humanity. And we can imagine that mountains will move and Red Seas will part. These are untapped spiritual truths, and we need to, bring them to people, because people are so thirsty. They're dying of thirst. And we have to release the upper waters to quench that for them. And it's beautiful. And it's we can all sit here and spout. I love history. So I'm every conversation that I listen to by all of you learned men is so historically awesome. And I know that nobody's heard it. Hardly anybody. And I'm so glad to be part of putting that out there in the airwaves where water can absorb it.
That's great. And of course, water is something that is increasingly becoming a commodity used also by the New World Order that has viciously taken these rivers and from communities, and of course they have took springs that were there for hundreds of years for the benefit of everyone and privatized them. Water is becoming, unfortunately, the next oil, the next.
People are dying of thirst in Africa right now. We're talking about China is devastated and people devastated in China. But in Africa, this is an ongoing genocide of African people for I don't know how many decades.
Now, Roseanne, there is an interesting thing here. For many years, the Chinese have been building these ghost cities in Africa, and nobody really knew what these ghost cities were for. Now it starts to, I mean, it's kind of disturbing because we know that the Chinese might actually have, of course, a problem with this COVID-19, but they might be the first ones to actually find a solution. And in the same way, we have instead the continent of Africa, like Bill Gates said, that could, of course, be decimated by the coronavirus. And in that case, maybe these ghost towns have been built for some kind of plan. John, what's your take on that?
Well, that's an interesting concept. You know, I mean, that's kind of like, remember the neutron bomb they used to talk about where, oh, they liked it because they could like blow off a neutron bomb and all the buildings would still be there. It's just that everybody'd be dead, you know, so we could just kind of clear it out so we could just move our guys in. Yeah, that whole kind of apocalyptic mentality, and behold, a pale horse. And the name of him was death. You know, it's like these dark waves of the controlitarians. We'll call them that. I just made up a new word, controlitarian. Yeah, I'm a controlitarianist, and I want to let you know that I know what you need better than you do. I mean, come on. You know,
and of course, John, the weakness of communism is really visible when nowadays the head of this department or this region get fired by the supreme communist leader who is not happy with the results and why they didn't stop the coronavirus earlier. Like we said in the show, just at the beginning of the show, communism, when it's actually used in the way the Chinese use it, deresponsibilize everybody, meaning that nobody takes any more responsibility because the responsibility is of the collective communist party that doesn't have really a responsible person on top of it, but a series of shadowy characters behind the scenes that decide if this building needs to be isolated or this city or this and that. John, what do you want to say?
Well, yeah, that's just it, because that, again, controlitarian. And so what do we have? We have these bureaucratic systems, and that's what they are. They're just massive bureaucracies. Like, look at Washington.
Yeah, bureaucracy is really, I mean, even in Russia, bureaucracy has always been at the center of it all. And Europe, really, it's still in that way. I mean, countries like Italy are full of bureaucracy, and the state rules supreme in front of these eternal queues. Of course, in the age of the internet, things should be updated and modernized. But it seems like you still are required to queue for having a stamp from the bureaucrat who is there waiting for you. And then,
in American intelligence media and Americans for Innovations, we've done just massive research projects on the senior executive service in the United States, which is this like bureaucratic non-military generals within the government system that were inserted by Jimmy Carter, and they're like these lifetime bureaucrats, and they just move them around like chess pieces.
I mean, I
ran into this guy who's like a former military and all that, did stuff with police and all that, and I started talking about senior executive service. He says, "Oh yeah, those guys. You know, like if I do something wrong, I'll get fired or even go to jail. If they do something wrong, they just move them into another department."
And that's how bureaucracy.
Church, you know, they just.
I mean, Lowell, what do you think of this World Health Organization? Who put them there? Who has placed these people in Geneva overseeing this immense power, you know? And now, of course, getting into friction with the Chinese who have their own bureaucrats and their own powers. Who has put these people there? What is the World Health Organization, really?
That's an easy one. Satan, his demons, and fallen angels. It goes back 6,000 years to the garden. Now, I want to refer to what you were talking about. Let's get scriptural, boys and girls, especially you Christians out there. We're looking at Isaiah chapter 11, the chapter that deals with the Melech HaMashiach and the Messianic era. We're talking about water. Chapter 11, verse 9, King James, old King James says, "They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea." And right now, in a physical sense, right now, we've been getting tons of water dumped all over the land of Israel in an unprecedented way that hasn't been seen in 200 years since measurements were taken of rainfall. That's in preparation for the Messianic era. Here comes your global Israelite, back to the Bible, revolution to overthrow all pharaohs and all Nimrods and all globalist New World Order organizations, which go right back to Nimrod. And that was the fight with Nimrod and Abraham, who wasn't a Chaldean, is a Sumerian prince, which is why he was fleeing with his family to Haran, to go to the land of Canaan, which would become the land of Israel. And that's why everything they do, they blame on the Jews. We murdered children. Oh, no, you murdered children. Just like Saul Alinsky said, when you get up in the morning, look in the mirror, make a list of everything you don't like about yourself and blame it on the other guy. That's what the demon crap, dementors, it's not even the Democrats anymore in Washington do with Trump. They project on everything they do. They really do. They blame on him. And it's all failing because he's a shaliach from upstairs. Nothing they throw at him can win. Now let's go back to China. We're now in the age of terminations. What terminations? Daniel, that little finger on the wall, Soviet Union is gone. All right. Who else is on the chopping block now? Pakistan, China, and Iran. China had the Chinese communist dictatorship. You had your 70 years from 1949 to 2019. You don't exist anymore, which is why seemingly mysteriously the whole system is collapsing literally before our eyes. All those bureaucracies gone. Next, Iran. You had 1970. No, let's go back. Pakistan is an unreal nation, hub of drugs, weapons, everything. You had from 1949 to 2019, 70 years finished, Pakistan collapses. It's not real. They're the Baluchis and the Pathans. Who else gets hit? The lunatic Khomeiniocracy, which Sheikh Palazzi said what the Wahhabis are to Sunnis, Khomeini was to Shiite Islam. You had just 40 years from 1979 to 2019. You're finished too. All those regimes will collapse before our eyes. And also, but I don't want to put it in the same category, the 70 years of the state of Israel as we know it, that's also over. We're coming up on our third elections. No one's even knows there'll be fourth elections. It doesn't matter. That system doesn't exist anymore. And I don't mean to classify it with the others because there was many good things about it. But that system is all the Erev Rav systems are over. They're gone. It's finished. Water is flowing out from Jerusalem, the living waters of the Torah, to the world. Now, let's go to the book of Revelation. I want all you Christians to actually read it. It's only 21 paragraphs. Don't read it bits and pieces, what your pastor, read the whole thing. You're going to read about the 144,000, 12,000 from each tribe. You're going to read about the heavenly Jerusalem and the heavenly temple. And there is one sentence at the end which says, well, we don't need a temple because we're redeemed through Jesus. But it does say the temple's up there in the heavenly Jerusalem, just doesn't come down to the earthly Jerusalem. I want you to start reading it through Jewish eyes. If you had them and you actually knew your Tanakh, which you don't, you would be able to read each sentence and it would light up in your heads what are the verses it's taken from in the Tanakh. before it got goyified and Christianified with the church fathers, it's all there.
Lowell,
Jew has no problem reading the scriptures. What?
Lowell, do you think that in this age, after all this, this is the time in which we'll really encounter this biblical change and this Messiah? Are we living in the Messianic era like a lot of rabbis are saying?
A lot of everybody's saying, including Muslim. Now, yes, this is the 6th year of the 7th year Shemitah sabbatical cycle. 5780, then 5781. It's happening at the speed of light. Now, as John, you would all know this better than me, but all religions have a war tradition, a peace tradition. All you morons, stop saying Islam is a religion of peace. No religion is a religion of peace. They have a war tradition and a peace tradition. Stop talking nonsense. Now, they also have an apocalyptic tradition. All religions which deal with the problem of death, which is their main thing, the issue they're dealing with, have a messianic figure. You have the Mahdi in Islam, and you have the Christ in Christianity, and the Melech HaMashiach in Judaism, and the Maitreya Buddhist, Buddha of one version of Buddhism. I think it's Mahayana is the other one, Mahayana. And then you have Kalki on the white horse, the Hindu Mashiach. All of these religions have a concept of a messianic era and a messianic redeemer, which isn't surprising because as the Hindus teach, Hinduism comes from a pre-existing universal religion. That's the religion given to Noah and his son.
In Native Americans, like
what?
We have also this concept in the Native Americans. We have this concept also.
Of course they do. They most of the world's religions, and there are thousands of them.
And I saw the other day, Lowell, you were
regarding
the Native Americans and the Jewish faith, because there is being found in South America these tablets with Jewish writing.
Puerto Rico. Not a Puerto Rican, but yeah, Puerto Rico.
Central America. So can you tell us more about this discovery?
I really don't know much about it. All I know is we live in an age where mysteries are being revealed. Let's go back to the establishment of the State of Israel. 2 mega mysteries were revealed. The Dead Sea Scrolls, 1947. All of a sudden, after 2,000 years, are found. This is a true story. The little boy, the shepherd, goes and he throws a rock into a cave and hears something break. That sometimes these stories are true, and he finds in them are scrolls, the Dead Sea Scrolls, which remarkably confirm the accuracy of the Bibles that we have today. The oldest manuscripts don't go back more than 1,500 years. The Dead Sea Scrolls confirm that they're pretty accurate. And for Christians, the Nag Hammadi Gospels, the Gnostic Gospels. Because what did the church fathers do, aside from killing off their enemies as soon as they got state power in Rome? They destroyed all the Gospels that didn't fit their...
Absolutely.
What we have now, if there were any original Hebrew Gospels, we don't have them. Aramaic, I think one of the books in Aramaic. What you have is what the church fathers want you to have 4 centuries later. And even with that,
was, of course, created and crafted within the Roman Empire, because
okay. So these mysteries were revealed 70 years ago, 1947. Nag Hammadi Gospels. They were found by a farmer in a field, which is slightly different from the standard one. Reverend David mentioned the Al Ahmadiyya. They have a mosque in Haifa. They have two minarets. And one of the reasons they're considered heretical is because Ahmed, their founder, they believed he was a prophet. And for traditional Muslims, there's no prophet after Muhammad. But they're very nice people. And you want to have them as neighbors. So the Al Ahmadiyya believe in what's I think called doceticism, which is that it wasn't Jesus who died on the cross. Someone else was put in his place. There's a reference to that in the Quran. They thought they crucified him, but they didn't. That's the docetic tradition, I think. Now, just as a footnote, you might wonder why this Pharisee knows that. The reason is because aside from going to Quaker college, where I didn't learn it, I was accepted to a doctoral program, an MA program in church history and theology at Harvard University Divinity School. That was enough head stuff. I headed for Israel in 1982. I like theology. I like to learn all these things. That's why I know them and can tell you about them. So the communist Chinese regime is over. It's finished. You better read, Christians. You read your book of Revelation about the vials poured out in Zechariah, I think chapter 13, up to 2/3 of the world's population, whether it's the children of Israel in particular, or everybody in general, may not be here. So what do we all have to do? Not panic, pray. Our souls will be kept in our bodies because as the sheep pass before the shepherd, he'll make a selection. Jews know about selections. And he will decide who's going to be here 3 years from now. And we have to decide, do we want to be here? Some people say, you know what, I had enough. I want to go. That's okay. That's a choice too.
Thank you so much for your intervention. As usual, Lowell, you kind of get us lost in a myriad of names and things. But
I get myself lost too. I forgot where I started.
So, Roseanne, please.
Yeah, adding to what Lowell said, Purim is coming. So let's talk about that for a minute. Purim is coming, and it's like the head of the year. It's Adar, the head of the year. And, the story of Purim is about a decree being reversed. But this time, since I believe we're in the age of Mashiach, I believe Mashiach is here. And I say when I do my Purim prayers this year, it won't be to reverse the decree. It will be to cancel the decree. And that is a moving forward of all of humanity. The decree will be canceled, cleared this Purim because I'll be doing it. And it's just time for it to go because it's now obsolete. The decree against the Jewish people from, royalty. It's gone.
Okay, John, you wanted to add something to that?
And I want to add, and in the story of Purim, Haman was hung on his own gallows and his people were decimated, including his 10 sons and the whole thing, which again happened in 1946, where 10 Nazis were hung, exactly like
Also, I would like to remind Roseanne that...
Let me finish, but... The moving forward and together of humanity is what's coming. And because of the canceling the Jesuit decree against the Jewish people, we will not reverse it and hang Haman on his own gallows this time. This time, there just will be no decree left. It will vanish. And there'll be no need to get even. There'll be no need to have any more war. It will just be removed from grace. Grace will remove it. And I want to say, in Virginia Woolf's words, I think this is where we're headed, all of humanity together. We have done with war and slavery. Light up the windows of the new house, daughters. Let them blaze. Let them blaze.
Now, I would like people to also meditate on the fact that in the first couple of 100 years after the arrival of Jesus, it was really the Old Testament that they were referring to, and that Jesus was somehow involved as manifesting through this Old Testament, because Christianity really started to have the New Testament only coming along after a couple of centuries. And then, of course, like Lowell said, a lot of the Gospels were probably taken out because they wouldn't fit with a state religion once the whole thing got accepted as a state religion. Now, Father David, you are, of course, somebody who has studied theology, and what was really the relationship between the first Christians and the Jews at that time?
Gosh, let's start with a small question. Let me backtrack for a minute, Leo. I mean, one of my consecrations is actually in Valentinian Gnosticism. I was invited to a monastery in Italy and consecrated in that tradition a couple of years ago after roughly a 7-year discussion. I love what Lowell was saying about the Gnostic Gospels. The church, I don't know. I think I find the fathers a mixed blessing. I don't find them manipulative, but I find some of them desperate, and desperate people make the wrong decisions. So yeah, I mean, there were far too many gospels that were excluded, particularly mystical texts like the Gospel of Truth or the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Thomas, which of course, the minute they were recovered, were instantly attacked by the church, which is a shame because they're authentic. Some of them show women taking a very, leading positions in the early church. Therefore, that must be instantly destroyed. And there were no prejudices against people like me, openly gay priests. So that must instantly be destroyed as well. And anybody that, people like me used to be burnt at the stake. Think for yourselves, learn to love each other. My lovely Roseanne wants to say something.
Please, Roseanne. Unmute, Roseanne.
Yeah, speaking as a Jew, I want to go back 2,000 years and give my perspective. 2,000 years ago, there was a big war by Rome against the Jews, the native people, and their religion. And Jesus, was involved in it. He was, absolutely a revolutionary against Rome, And he implicated the colluders too, who colluded secretly with Rome and had power in our temple. That's the background that's always missing and needs to be brought forth. And also what the 24,000 students, Jesus was one of them, of Rabbi Akiva and his Jewish academy in Jerusalem. There are two Jewish traditions. There's the oral and the written. And the oral is passed down from grandmothers. And that is the holy secret of secrets, the holy of holy. And that's what was taught in our temple. And Jesus and Rabbi Shimon and another man chosen by Rabbi Akiva, Shimon Bar Chochma, planned a war against Rome. And that's what was going on. And for the high priests of the temple, the rabbis there, these rabbis who were chosen by Akiva to fight Rome on, with an existential mentalist battle, as well as a currency war, which I've sent you all documentation to that fact. But what Jesus did was to decode the teachings of the grandmothers and give them to the people in the streets. And that is called Zohar. And so this book, this 23 volumes of the Zohar, it has been hidden for 2,000 years. A lot of the war and the Inquisition was against the knowledge in that book. And now it's available to us in English for you Christian people, and for you Jews who don't speak Hebrew, or for anybody who wants it. And it is the living waters that Jesus taught. And what Jesus taught was the oral laws. And so I just think that needs to be added to this conversation. And this conversation can never take place on any level again on earth without those facts. And they have been erased. They have been historically expunged, like the UN is trying to do now. But it's the same agents, always the same agents. And when we talk about the third temple, we're going to get to that, right?
Well, of course, we should get to it because it's an important topic.
Christians believe that the temple will not be rebuilt until after after Jesus Christ returns. That's what they believe. But I'm here to tell you that the temple has already been rebuilt. And I have been in it. And it's underneath. It's underneath. It's in way down tunnels underneath. And
yes, I remember that place. I was actually invited.
It exists for those of you doubters out there. It already does exist. Lowell, you know of that. And people need to know that what has been prophesied already exists now. They need to add that to their crown. Stuff that in there. It already exists. So let's start talking about what that means. And for the earth and for all of humanity.
Now, it's true that there is, of course, tunnels and the remains of the second temple, probably even the first one, under the mosque, which now presides over the Temple Mount. And there is, of course, in the past, I remember in 2000 and probably 4 or 5, I was invited to Jerusalem to preside over a ritual that will take place there. However, I must say that unfortunately, also the forces of evil have used these tunnels for doing rituals. So it's unfortunate, but
you know what evil cannot exist where there is holiness. So you know they're already gone. Their crap is meaningless. It's black science and black magic and all the other.
And I actually can confirm you, Roseanne, that they were punished, because I remember that these people wanted to organize a ritual by using a like Weinstein, a creature which was an hermaphrodite creature called Michela Mercenaro, who used to be priest before becoming a woman. She had both sexes, and then she was authorized by the Vatican. She actually used to work at the Vatican archives. And Michela Mercenaro, in the end, was a Satanist. And so, of course, after her ritual there at the Temple Mount, soon after, I exposed her publicly. And around 10, 11 years ago, she was actually arrested. And they found inside their house a satanic temple in Sardinia. And so, karmically speaking, she got it back, Roseanne. She got it back. Like all the people who were involved in a black mass under the Temple Mount, they were all cursed. And I can even give you the names after in private of all these people. And so there is definitely a strong sacred force under the Temple Mount that they don't need to mess up with.
And they know nothing about it. Am I on mute? Can you hear me?
No, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah, they know nothing about it, that's what's so funny. All they can do is ape it. You know, all they can do is ape it. That's what it says in the Zohar. They chase after the people who know and ape them, what they think we're doing, but they know nothing about the human spirit because they don't have one. And those who do have buried it too deeply for it to be retrieved, unless they really are ready to forsake it and come back to the living. And some of them might be. I hope they are. But they know nothing about the real power that runs this earth. And I think we all should start talking about that real power instead of, making a golem out of it.
Thank you for saying that. John, you wanted to intervene, please.
Yeah, since you brought it up, I wasn't thinking of bringing it up, but I may as well bring it up as I've mentioned before that I was friends with Marjorie Fisher and her husband, Max Fisher, who turned down cabinet posts on 5 different occasions. And I'd be talking to Max and the phone would ring and it'd be Richard Nixon. It's like really dialed in. The guy that Israel picked for the negotiations between Israel and Egypt. And I can go on. I talked to him many, many times. But he contributed money back, this was in the late 70s, early 80s, thereabouts. He contributed money towards building a subterranean temple beneath Temple Mount. Now, I never heard any more about it, whether construction went ahead or not. But I remember very strongly the conversations to that effect. And given that, it's pretty funny because, Marjorie told me, she said that Max had all these big deal rabbis over the other night. And he said, now, Marjorie, don't start talking about Jesus. And she said, and so the rabbis show up. And so the first thing she says, she looks over at them and she says, so tell me, what do you think about Jesus? But so I don't know if anything went ahead with that project or not about the subterranean temple.
Well, there is during the excavations they found basically
It's there.
No,
It's
building,
there.
building a
Totally.
new one. Not
I'm actually trying to find in my archives while I'm talking to you photos of it, because I have some pics of it. So
I have photos of it too. For next week, I'll go through all and get them together. But I was there, including 2 mikvahs. There's 2 mikvahs. One mikvah just sprang up while I was there that week. An ancient mikvah underneath, and you know, so everything about tunnels in this whole world is very relevant. If you look at what's happening in tunnels and how Trump and, you know, the army are you know, fighting a war underground. They're fighting a war underground all over the earth. Yeah.
Here is the entrance gate to the Temple Mount, and you can view it. And this guy who is actually indicating is also one of the most known Freemasons here in the United States, who has conducted apparently also a Masonic ritual under there. So I just wanted to show you that quickly. And please, Lowell.
I've been listening to the sages here and making notes, and I can get through them very quickly relating to what all of you said in the last few minutes. Number one, Roseanne, regarding the underground chambers, I mean, that you mentioned that I didn't realize that has been built, that the underground chambers are there. I knew, but as the Talmud says, he who is ashamed will not learn. So I don't know. Now, next point. The Zohar that Roseanne referred to, the name Zohar, is actually right out of the book of Genesis. It was the light that was in the ark. It's called the Zohar. Right. In my opinion, the previous flood was by water. The current flood will be by fire, diseases, God knows what. Israel is Noah's ark in the coming flood. That's the God of Israel spiritually, for everybody, and the land of Israel physically. And what we all can do is study, pray, and do acts of loving kindness, like David said, practical Christianity. And I think Roseanne said, faith without works is dead. That's from the book of James, which begins with greetings to our brethren from the 12 tribes in the diaspora. Look at sentence number 1 in the book of James. It's all there. Okay. Now, regarding the point of the grandmothers and the traditions, here, King James Version, Matthew 23, verses 1 through 3. Then spoke Jesus to the multitude. I'm amazed the church fathers didn't edit this out. Then spoke Jesus to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore, whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do.
Lowell, Roseanne wants to say something.
Right.
Oh, no, I was just holding up a sign.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Now, what Jesus, then it goes into a condemnation of hypocrisy. Don't talk the talk, walk the walk. No one will disagree with that. What is Jesus making? A revolutionary statement. He's saying, I'm recognizing the authority of the sages to interpret and apply the written Torah. And that is why anyone who has any familiarity with rabbinic tradition thinking will see in the discussions of Jesus with other rabbis, discussions between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Christians don't know that, so they don't know what it's referring to. But any Jew with a pinky's worth of Talmudic knowledge, oh yeah,
but Lowell, that's why we go back to what I said earlier on. In the first couple of centuries after Christ, there was this kind of approach, even from the early Christians.
Right, and that is why the church fathers, and you see it now, as the systems collapse and as people leave the structures they're in, the pastors and the preachers, I'm losing my money, I'm losing my flock, start to rant and rave and scream about the Jews, like John Chrysostom, who says, what are you going to the synagogues? What are you going there on Shabbat? Why are you celebrating holidays with these Christ-killing Jews? It took a long time for the church fathers and those who followed them to poison the minds of the B'nai Yefet, the children of Yefet of Europe, who became the primary base of Christianity, with these terrible anti-Jewish teachings in the art and the music and the literature, which
Lowell,
changed the very genetics of the
I
whole
think
culture.
that the affirmation of Christian faith has started when the human rationality, in a way, tried to impose a vision on the absolute. I would say that. I would say that there is, of course, a need here for Christians to, of course, and it's also in myself as a Christian, to affirm that Christ is the Logos. The Logos is a concept that arrived into Christianity, though rather late, because in the first, like I said, in the early Christianity, they were much closer to a New Testament kind of vision of reality. So now there is also definitely similarities between the Holy Spirit concept and the Shekinah, which or Shekinah, which we might discuss in future episodes. We have only 10 minutes, and I wanted to show you, before, of course, we conclude this episode, also a video that comes from China, because I find it a very disturbing testimony that might help also this person who is risking their life to deliver this information. So let's listen what they're saying here, because, of course, it...
武汉这个事情，武汉这个瘟疫，都是有计谋、有计划发出来这个瘟疫。
Now you can see the subtitles, of course.
平民老百姓，我的家人，我的父母在家等死，没有人关心我们平民老百姓的性命。有钱也买不到药，有钱也买不到病房。然后香港同胞，你们独立，我支持；台湾独立，我也支持；西藏、香港独立都支持。 摆脱共产党的邪恶手爪，腐败的政权，邪恶的社会，没有一个人可以自由发声，没有一个人，只有一个人自由发声，就去警察局喝茶、拘留、判刑，法律是他们判的，他们能说判几多年就能判几多年。 律师都没有用的，有一个正义的律师都会关起来，他不会为正正而说话，因为他们有邪恶的政权压迫下，不能正的说话。我要告诉你
I think that it's of course a very disturbing testimony. Unfortunately, technically we're having some problems, but here we are seeing the testimony of a person who is definitely challenging the regime, which is arresting any person who in any way is telling us the truth about what is really happening in China. So it is, of course, very sad to see that there is people that are kept this way in front of a situation that is expanding, of danger. Hello, David. We see you now. Welcome back. So I wanted to just, before we ended this show, also show you the evil of communism in the voice, the desperate voice of this Chinese citizen. Just so, I mean, it's something that I would have liked maybe a better technical setup to put through this concept. But overall, the evil of communism is still pervading in China, and it's just as dangerous as the coronavirus. However, before David, we are seeing you. David, are you there? I mean, I think we had a kind of a glimpse in the reality of David William Perry, because kind of like it was. So before we end up this show, of course, I want to give you time for your shameless promotion of your books. Each of you is an author. I am an author of this book, which relates, of course, to cyber Satan and to the reality of the satanic reality of the artificial intelligence, what is really coming out of this artificial intelligence and how they want to implement all this. Then we have another book, which is my latest book, which is volume 4, which of course is based on the evils of Ignatian spirituality, of Jesuitry, and also of all the connections with the Sabbatean Frankists and the Jesuits and other topics. Then we have John Barnwell. John Barnwell has also a couple of books, and they are...
I have my 2 books, the Arcana of the Grail Angel, the big thick one, the Arcana of Light on the Path, in which I explore the great cycles of history and how they relate to all the various cultural impulses and streams, and weaving together as expressed through the tradition of Grail brotherhood that developed into the Rosicrucian impulse, ultimately, the spiritual Christianity. And in keeping with what you were saying before, though, I wanted to remind people that President Donald Trump said, "We will never surrender American sovereignty to an unelected global bureaucracy. America is governed by Americans. We reject the ideology of globalism, and we embrace a doctrine of patriotism."
But John, you know very well that the moment in which there is a global pandemic, finally these people will have the possibility to march in with their UN armies.
Well, yeah, that's their methodology of shock economics. You know, anytime they want to gain further control, they just create a crisis, and then they make themselves like what's supposed to be the solution. But anyways, in addition, there's paypal.me/ John Barnwell 888 for anybody that wants.
Of course, we welcome the donations also for this channel. We have my PayPal listed as well as John's, and of course we have books also by Roseanne Barr, who has some very excellent writings, not really known by the majority of her fans, who maybe always see another side to Roseanne, but there is a very serious side to Roseanne, an author of books. Roseanne, please tell us which book you would like to promote this week. Unmute
yourself.
Unmute yourself.
Okay. I've written 3 books, and I'm writing a 4th one now, so that's kind of fun to be writing again. But the first book is called My Life as a Woman, and the second book is called My Lives, and the third book is called Roseanarchy. So yeah, they're all deep thoughts, but I wanted to share this book today since I thought it was appropriate. And I read this book, it's very interesting. It's called Jesus in the Talmud. And this is a very important book, and you have to be able to uncode or decode it according to the people who wrote it in the Talmud, because it's just a very interesting take, and I want to rewrite it because it's very Jesuit, but a Jesuit interpretation. But I think that this is a new time and a new day, and so we need new interpretations of old holy ideas. And you know, I'm really I'm so lucky that I was born in the world with this passion to do it. I'm so lucky that that's my passion.
And thank you, Roseanne, because I know that yesterday you have uploaded for the first time the Pew on your channel with great results. So we are reaching an even bigger amount of people with our project here. And hopefully in the coming months, we will reach more and more people. I see that Reverend David Perry, unfortunately, has disappeared. He has probably been called to his duties as a priest. I mean, it's Sunday, so of course it's an important day for Christian ministers. So thank you so much for tuning in today for this 5th episode of The Pew. We have, unfortunately, Father David, who is absent, so we can't have his usual prayer. So Roseanne, please give us your weekly prayer to this 5th show. Hello? Roseanne seems to have been frozen. Yes, Lowell seems to be kind of wondering what has happened. I'm probably, I think, maybe the signal. I'm going to try to bring back in Roseanne and see if we can get her, but she seems to have also some technical issues. So, guys, I'm, of course, left with myself and John. John, would you like to deliver us a prayer today? I mean, why not? I mean, and then I will do the same with Lowell, because you two guys need to give us your side on the weekly prayer. So, John, please.
Well, Heavenly Father of Abraham, which would cover everybody involved in this, our endeavor, and all the people that are coming across this, may you find the blessings of the Heavenly Father upon you through your strivings and through your relationship to each other to express love in the world.
Amen to that, and thank you so much. And Lowell, your prayer from your Jewish perspective. And we have, of course, Roseanne, who is back. So, Roseanne, can you give us your prayer? We just got John to give his first prayer here on the pew for the closing of the pew. So now we have you.
I'd like to say that I pray that the light of the intelligence of love pierces this realm stronger and stronger every minute, and that it goes directly to the heart of the beast. Amen.
Amen to that. Definitely well said. Thank you so much, all of you. And we will see you next week for the 6th episode of The Pew. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. The power of prayer in whatever tradition is always fundamental to fight these great evils upon mankind, including the COVID-19. And so, guys, don't underestimate what is going on. We are living in an end times situation, in Messianic era, if you want to take it by the Jewish perspective, but we're definitely living in unprecedented times. So,
and everyone should listen to Rabbi Kessin, because he's talking about the end times and what it means. And so I love him, and I think everybody should listen to him. He's on YouTube.
Yes, I've actually pointed that out in prior episodes, right, also because of his take on the coronavirus. And so he's definitely a voice to follow in this scenario. Thank you so much. God bless you all.
God bless you.